Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the Treat Me Right Live from WomenHeart. Today, we're joined by Pat Weilnau, a WomenHeart champion who has turned years of experience navigating the healthcare system into powerful advocacy for others. Pat was diagnosed with hypertension at just 21 and comes from a family with a strong history of heart disease. Despite this, her coronary artery disease went undiagnosed for years. She's here today to share how she found her voice, why advocating for yourself matters, and how the Treat Me Right campaign is helping women nationwide push for the care they deserve. So let's jump right in. Welcome, Pat. Let's start with the first question. Can you briefly introduce yourself and share your heart journey with us?
Sure. Thank you, Selena, for having me. As Selena said, I'm a WomenHeart champion, but my heart journey started, as she mentioned, when I was 21. I was diagnosed with hypertension. I had a family history of heart disease. So I was always checking my cholesterol. Everything was good. Hypertension was always controlled by medication. And then about 15 years ago, when I was 51, I started having symptoms that were unusual: back pain, side pain, like pain in different places. And so I went to the doctor, and my doctor sent me for tests. So I tested my gallbladder, tested my gastrointestinal system, tested a bunch of things, but all the tests kept coming back negative. But she failed to realize that, it could be heart. I was hypertensive, so. One thing that the doctor did mention is that they thought it might be muscular. So it was ignoring anything with my heart, but thinking muscular, or maybe even my bra was too tight. And so at that point, I decided, wait, stop, hold, something else is wrong. Because at that point, I was having a pain that was going through my chest like a broomstick. And it's like, this was not muscular. So I finally found my voice and said, could it be my heart? And reluctantly, I was sent then for a stress test, which they found that 97% of my LAD artery was blocked, and I needed 4 stents. And then I was properly diagnosed with coronary artery disease.
Wow. And Pat, how long did that take from the very first symptoms to getting the diagnosis?
So from having the symptoms of, when I was needing my stents, it was almost a 2-year period of time, because I just kept going back and, with no results, no. No solution.
No resolution, really.
Right.
Yeah.
And yet we still had that pain,
Yeah. So tell us what inspired you to get involved with the Treat Me Right campaign.
So I feel that it's important that these types of stories, like mine and many others, get out there, and that providers, hear them, and women who are experiencing, symptoms or can't get information from their doctors, hear these stories so that they can be empowered to advocate for themselves.
Yeah. And you mentioned that the moment you realized your voice needed to be heard more clearly was when you felt this broomstick going through you, and you thought that like something different has to happen here. How did you learn to advocate for yourself during your heart health journey then?
So from that point on, up until that point, I was always, you're always taught to follow your doctor's instructions. And I just blindly would follow whatever they told me to do, or, whatever was needed.
Yeah.
But at that point, I decided I needed to be more involved, and I needed to understand more of what was going on and why things were happening and why I was taking certain medications, but just be more involved in my healthcare.
Were you scared to do that? Were like, what were the feelings
Oh,
going through you
oh
that,
yeah,
that you
because
were like, okay, this.
I was, because I'm not one to question, you know, I respect the medical field, so I'm not one to question
Yeah.
their judgment, but it was
Yeah.
scary. It was.
Yeah, I bet. So, what does evidence-based care mean to you as a patient?
So I believe evidence based care is keeping the patient involved, understanding the patient, and understanding things like family history, risk factors, pre-existing conditions,
Right.
that all needs to be taken into consideration when you're being treated.
Yeah. And then what in turn encouraged you to take that leap to become a WomenHeart champion?
So, well, actually, I was at cardiac rehab when I found out about WomenHeart, and I thought that seemed to be a perfect place to help other women that are going through, learning about heart disease, or, finding out a diagnosis of heart disease and how they could navigate through their journey.
You know, we are currently interviewing incoming new champions, to sort of intake and get them through our science and leadership training. And we've heard a number of women say, this is during their interview, this is the first time I've ever shared my story like this. And they're even just in the interview itself, they felt a sense of liberation, this feeling of like getting something literally off their chest that they have been holding for so long. Is that something that you could relate to in your journey with WomenHeart?
Oh yeah, most definitely. So that,
Yeah.
and being part of WomenHeart, just, realizing that you're not alone so that you can freely share your story.
Yeah. And what tips would you offer to women who are struggling, like you were, to speak up in their medical appointments or throughout their medical care, and maybe even trying in an attempt to get a diagnosis?
Well, I think it's important that you take the time to write down ahead of time questions you might have or symptoms you might have, and take those, because that piece of paper will help give you courage to actually ask those questions. Also, there's a time when you're waiting for your provider and your provider comes in and usually says something like, "How are you?" That, I feel, is an opportunity
Yeah.
for you to say, like, take control of the situation and actually say, "I'm here to discuss, my medications, or I'm here to discuss these symptoms I'm having." And therefore, then they right away you have their attention, and they're going to listen.
I think that's such great advice. This is not a time to beat around the bush. This is not a time to, to work up slowly. This is a time to state your purpose right from the get-go.
Yeah, I find that's, it's very helpful. So,
The Treat Me Right campaign encourages women to ask the right questions, as we've just talked about. You gave some examples just now, but what are some additional key questions that you now ask your providers on a regular basis to make sure that you are well informed about your progress?
so I always go through and ask questions about my medication, because I don't want to be that person that's just taking this medication forever, and maybe there was some better treatment at that point. So we review
Mm-hmm.
medication,
Mm-hmm.
I also ask if there's any testing that should be done at any time, whether it's testing for lipoprotein little a, which I tested in, which can substantiate your diagnosis. So, and also my question that I asked initially, I continue to ask, and that is, could it be related to my heart, whatever it is?
Yes. Absolutely. And at the end of it, we often talk at Women Heart about how so many things are related to our hearts. Sometimes things that we wouldn't even realize were related to having a long-term heart condition. I want to just relate to your example of LP little a. It's something that I tested recently and also was found to have high levels of. And I love the word you use, substantiate. I think that absolutely was my experience as well, where you say, oh, these issues that I've been having now, like there's a cause of sort of this underlying reason why I'm having these difficulties. And if nothing else, it just makes you feel a little less lost maybe in what you're feeling physically.
Right. And I mean, there's certain things you can't change, but at least it gives you information. So.
Absolutely. And how would you say being a WomenHeart champion has helped you to feel a little bit more empowered in your healthcare experience?
So WomenHeart has helped educate me on various aspects of heart disease, which I think that knowledge is power. And that has helped me, once you understand certain things, then it's easier to advocate and discuss, those topics.
Absolutely. And what messages would you want women watching today to walk away with?
I think it's important to listen to your body because you know your body best, and not to give up, persevere until you get the proper care that you deserve.
Absolutely. And to not second guess. I think that's a really big, you mentioned that a little bit, to not second guess. If this is something completely odd to you, then I think that knowledge is really, really important to convey to your physician. How can women get involved in the Treat Me Right campaign or support other women in their advocacy journeys?
Well, they can go to the WomenHeart website because there's all kinds of information to educate yourself on the Treat Me Right campaign. And also there is a toolkit that I find very helpful for either using it for you or helping support another woman going through this.
Absolutely. Well, Pat, I have really appreciated listening to your story and hearing how you've taken charge of your health. The fact is, the better we are informed and in charge of our health, the better our health is. And I think you're a great testament to that. So thank you for that. It also reminds us, all of us really, why no woman should ever feel dismissed or ignored when it comes to her heart health. And if any of you have ever left a doctor's office feeling like you weren't heard, just know, like Pat, and even my experience, you're not alone. The Treat Me Right campaign exists particularly to change that reality for all of us. We're here to help women ask the right questions, to speak up with confidence, to demand evidence-based care that really treats the whole woman, the whole person. So we are here to say, Pat and I, please join us in this movement, and let's make sure that every woman is treated right. Thanks so much, Pat.
Thank you, Selena.